Good evening to you and a happy primary night. My name is Alexandra Goldberg. It is good to be with you. Now our conversation moves to Utah as redistricting has made its way to Utah. Take a look here. The Associated Press saying that redrawn U.S. House map in Utah sets up heated Democratic primary in Salt Lake area district. Of course, we know that tonight is the primary in the state, and this redraw of U.S. House district created a blue-leaning district in that Salt Lake City area, which is Utah's first district. And tonight, Utah voters cast their ballots in the state's midterm election. Let's now bring in the Salt Lake City Tribune's Emily Anderson Stern to discuss a little bit more on what to expect tonight. Emily, let's start with some much needed context here. How did redistricting change the stakes for Democrats in Salt Lake City?
This is a story that has been going on for almost a decade now. In 2018, voters voted in the Better Boundaries Initiative to create an independent redistricting commission and ban partisan gerrymandering. And the Utah legislature repealed that, passed their own version of how redistricting would go, and put maps in place. And a legal battle ensued last year. A district court judge, after the Utah Supreme Court ruled that the legislature did have to honor that ballot initiative, a district court judge threw out the maps that the legislature had passed and put into place for 2022 elections, and instead ordered that a different map be adopted. And that map includes, while Utah previously had 4 solid red congressional districts, that map includes a district that leans pretty heavily Democratic. So we will likely have in 2027 3 Republican members of Congress and 1 Democratic member of Congress.
Okay, that's good context for us to have. We also did have a race call just now. We have the Associated Press saying Ben McAdams wins Democratic nomination for U.S. House in Utah's first congressional district. This race was called just moments ago. Emily, I'll bring you back out here. If you could describe to us a little bit about what is McAdams' campaign, why did he resonate with voters?
So Ben McAdams, he has been in Congress before. In 2018, he beat the late Congresswoman Mia Love for the district, and then he was ousted by current Representative Burgess Owens, who is a Republican. Mia Love, also a Republican. And he is Utah's last Democratic member of Congress. There hasn't been one since then. And now it's looking like he will head back to Washington. Ben McAdams faced a few challengers in this primary race, all of them from the left, largely. They were all seen as more progressive than him. But as you pointed out, he has about 60% of the vote. The AP has called the race for him. And Democrats hold about a 17 percentage point lead in this congressional district, so he will likely go on to victory in November. He will face, once these results become official, Republican Riley Owen, who's a former White House staffer under the Trump administration, and is a Navy Reserve intelligence officer.
Yeah, and you're seeing those results right on your screen. You could see McAdams with 60% of that vote share and his challenger with 24%. You talked a little bit about the Republican challenger heading to the general election, but I did want to move the conversation back to this discussion of redistricting. Emily, I wanted to ask you, how have Republicans been reacting to this new court-ordered map, especially Governor Spencer Cox? What's the reaction from the GOP?
Top Republican leaders in the state have honestly been enraged at the court orders. They put out fiery statements after them, and they have looked at ways that they might change the state's constitution to make it so that future voter initiatives wouldn't have this kind of effect. Lawmakers have talked about, and interim meetings. We've already held our annual legislative session for the year here in Utah, but in interim meetings, they're looking at calling a special session to potentially put a constitutional amendment on the ballot in November that would change how voter initiatives, what kind of power they have, and whether voters can actually change the law in the state. And there have been ways that also Republicans have looked at changing the way the courts work in Utah after these orders. That includes adding a couple of justices to our Supreme Court and changing who selects the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Previously, justices on the state Supreme Court voted and selected their own Chief Justice. Now the governor selects that Chief Justice. So there have been a number of reforms in the wake of these rulings. And the redistricting battle still goes on. It's still making its way through the courts. But it definitely is not a finished fight.
Yeah, the redistricting battle still goes on. In your words, of course, we have the race call today in the Democratic primary for Utah's 1st district. The question I want to end our conversation with, and when we talk to reporters on election night or primary elections, I like to ask the question, have you been talking to Salt Lake City voters today in the days leading up to this race? And what has some of the main messages from voters in that 1st district been?
It seems as if the engagement has definitely been a little different, especially among Democrats, now that they are seeing that there is a primary election where the candidate does have a good chance of making their way to Washington. And so something that we are watching as we get final results coming in is how turnout has changed. In the district, Salt Lake County is pretty blue in a solid red state. And so in this district that is entirely in Salt Lake County, around the state's capital, there has been a lot more turnout at caucus events for Democrats. And so that really is a lot of what the discussion has been around, is just the changes that are coming in this district for Democrats who traditionally don't win federal or statewide races here.
All right, Emily Anderson Stern with the Salt Lake City Tribune. We appreciate you coming on Live Now and sharing your reporting.
Thanks so much.
Of course.